Is the whole thing not working? Well, good morning. I have no idea whether we've got any sound or not. It was perfectly all right a moment ago, but I just have to double check if you'll forgive me for a moment, and we'll have to see. We got the vision, all right, but have we got the sound? Vision, all right, but have we got the sound? We have. Okay. All right. There we go. We can carry on as if normal, but obviously it's Halloween, and the Hobgoblins have got hold of us. Oh dear. When that happens, anything can happen because Halloween is all about the dead and the about to dead and the about to become alive and so on and so forth. So it can be a pretty awful day, all in all, until you get to trick or treat. It is the 31st day of October in the year 2022. And it looks as if it's a relatively calm day, he said. Who knows what's going to happen with all the shenanigans that go on in Westminster. But we will go to the papers in a moment to find out what is happening, if anything, up there. And then we will try and carry on as normal. Later in the day, we'll carry an interview with Stephen Catlin, the former mayor, but a man around town who actually looks after the gardens and so on, the public gardens that we have here. And he had a few words to say about the Remembrance Sunday. It all happens at this time of the year, doesn't it? Hobgoblins, bonfire, Remembrance Sunday, and or Remembrance Day, which is November the 11th, of course, and something that is less and less regarded by younger people. Yeah, wait until you wake up to what's happening with the Ukraine, and that starts to affect you. Then you might look at things rather differently. But all in all, the big problem with our nation is that the sense of duty that was felt 100 years ago, a sense of duty towards your society, towards your neighbor, towards the country, has disappeared completely. And this me society is destroying itself. Look at me. I've got no more than another 50 years to live, so it's not going to bother me. Well, perhaps not 50. It's not going to bother me personally, but I feel that my duty is to taking forward the generations that follow me and trying to make sure that they get as good a life as they possibly can. But it's they who are destroying it. Is they must, and we must, and for that matter, our leaders must get back that sense of duty, that sense of not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And there ain't much about it anymore. And that which is broadly led by people of my age, people who are 50, 60, 70. And actually, the statistics show, I understand, that the generations who don't care, who have no feel for a sense of duty, are those under 30. My colleague said under 40, but I know you're 30 to 40 at the moment. You're on reasonably safe ground. But that sense of duty has got to come back. Anyway, let's take a look at the papers and the Daily Mail. We lead off with this morning is a petrol bomber attacks a migrant centre, and that's a very both significant and sinister development in this whole issue of migrants. At a migrant centre in Dover was hit by firebombs towards the end of last week. 3 incendiary devices, in fact. Over the number of migrants that have crossed the Channel to the UK this year, the paper reports, it also says concerns are growing over the conditions at a second asylum processing area in Kent. So that's coming back to the front of the papers. The Daily Telegraph is likewise migrants side by side in hotels with public. I think what it's saying is that they're thrown into a hotel and then they go down to the bar, and people who are used to frequenting that hotel find themselves shoulder to shoulder with migrants. Does it matter? Suella Braverman's plan to relieve overcrowding at the asylum processing centre in Kent leads the Telegraph. Overcrowding at the site worsened on Sunday as hundreds of migrants were transferred there after the centre in Dover came under attack. It says the Home Office is drawing up proposals for spot booking rooms rather than reserving entire hotels in part of the as part of the measures. I don't know that that's going to help one way or another. I can't see the significance particularly. The Daily Express, horror petrol bomb attack on a migrant centre, carries on with the theme. It says, the paper says that 2 were hurt when the devices exploded. The bomb squad detectives deactivated 1 device found in the attacker's car in a petrol station. Elsewhere, the paper warns food prices could rise again after Putin abandoned the internationally brokered grain deal with the Ukraine. And of course, the Ukraine is famously the Russian steppes. They weren't Russian at all. As were the wheat fields, the breadbasket of Europe. And so he's now tampering with that as well as the oil. It's a pretty dire situation in many ways. The Guardian, ministers accused of Wild West attitude to the UK's national security. What that's all about is that ministers are said to have created Wild West conditions in matters of national security by the increased use of personal mail, email, and phones to conduct confidential business. The paper's main image of a man paying tribute at a memorial in Taiwan to those who were killed in a crush there over the weekend. That's Taiwan. It's a dreadful accident. Well, what do you say? An incident? Yeah. The paper also reports a new round of cuts at the BBC, which could drastically reduce local radio programming in England. Hey, they always get it the wrong way around. If they make a cut, they go for the locals instead of what they. That's the trouble with having a bunch of dickheads in charge. They are civil servants, pen pushers. They do not understand the industry at all. And do they listen to anybody that knows about the industry? No, they do not. And in the BBC, they've lost more good people because the pen pushers are in command. They have had really creative people who have disappeared in frustration. Then those that have stayed have risen to the top, and that's why it's so mediocre. Because they wouldn't say boo to a goose. Didn't care whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. Never mind. That's my own bag. The Eye. Sunak under Tory pressure to U-turn over climate snow. They said to him, his decision not to attend the COP27 climate conference. The party has said, hey, you better get there. We've got to show a keen face. The Mirror. The NHS is facing the worst winter on record. It says doctors fear a mix in COVID and flu cases will spark a crisis. Well, they've been saying that for quite some time. What's new about it? I have no idea. Financial Times: Moscow's ditching of Ukraine grain deal is portends catastrophic situations for poor nations, and that goes back to the Putin is going to ditch a deal that allows Ukraine to export grain from its Black Sea ports. And it means that we can't get that grain easily, or it's going to cost more to get it to us. So there's another jump in global food prices. Right, The Sun. England ace, my racist troll hell. The Sun says that an arrest is imminent after a troll who abused Chelsea defender Reece James has been tracked down to the Middle East. Mr. James gave statements to Instagram, police, and officials abroad, the paper says. The Daily Star, let's hope it rescues us from the rest of the nonsense. 3 body doubles suggest Mad Vlad may not exist, but who's the Vladdy? It says, and the Star says the Ukrainian suspect Vladimir Putin has been replaced by 3 body doubles who had plastic surgery. Well, there we go. We will, in a moment, look at. We'll look at some local news, just in case there is any worth. But in the meantime, let's take our first visit to the park this morning. We're taking a look at the local news. It's very difficult to see it because that particular app is full of ads and so on. You don't know what you're talking about. I mean, it isn't. There's not much in it at all, and very, very disappointing. But no, it's not a great deal. Not a great deal on the cards this morning, I'm afraid. Okay, so it is that time of year when today we've got Halloween, trick or treat, and we've got bonfire, and we've got the memorial to the fallen of all wars, as Stephen Catlin reminds us, of all wars. And that takes place on the November the 11th and the following Sunday, the 13th, 11th, 12th, 14th, Sunday the 14th. So let's first of all do the weather thing because we got a special way to do it this morning, and this is Claudine.
since I was a teenager, I've always loved autumn. And as I grow older, I still love autumn. And when I go out, I just am captured by all the colours that come up, the reds and the yellows. And then if you look down, you have gorgeous leaves, dead leaves, that are crunchy and you just kick through them. So even when I'm my age at 39, I can act like a child and just kick through the leaves. What I find fascinating about autumn are the little treats you get. You get acorns and conkers, and they're hanging from trees looking pretty, or they're on the floor and you just want to collect them and put them in a bowl. And that's one of the things you can do in autumn. You can just collect all the things that you find pretty, like the gorgeous leaves, the red leaves, such as this. Those kind of brown. And get your acorns. Hang on. Acorn. And your conkers, and put them in a nice centerpiece bowl on your table. And it, to me, represents the change of season, obviously, but that we're going from, I think, an unpleasant summer. As we get older, summers are too warm. And autumn is just the right temperature, where you can relax a little bit and take your time, read a book and cozy up at home. And then when you want to go out, you can enjoy all the colours that are around.
Oh, it's a lovely time of year, and Claudine rustling through the leaves that have fallen from the trees, looking for conkers and acorns and all the fruits of the field, as it were. It is 8:50 on the morning of the 31st of October, Halloween, and plenty going on in that direction tonight, I would imagine. It is interesting that one of the things that Halloween it brings to the UK is that it's becoming an increasingly important festival. So close to Bonfire, and of course in Lewis, it will never ever replace Bonfire. But in the rest of the country, it is a very popular affair. I always think of Halloween in the movie E.T., where the children trying to protect the little man from outer space dress him as a ghost and try to move him from pillar to post so that the authorities won't get him and carve him up and see what he's made of. It's a lovely scene, but of course, the little man from outer space has got a few magical powers. So here they are, riding on their bicycles, and the police cars get in the way and wave down. So the little man, E.T., makes their bikes rise into the air. And off they go across the forest. Absolutely wonderful. I always think of Halloween in that series, that way. I must confess, is I hadn't a clue. The first time that I really came across Halloween was with my very first year in Canada, which was like 1958. And my landlords sort of said, "What are you going to dress up as?" I hadn't a clue what he was talking about. Eventually, just as students, he got us fixed up in something, and we went around trick or treating, and gained a few bob for some charity or other. I can't remember what it was. Actually, I think it was something called Red Feather, and I thought that the Canadians had rather a good idea. What they did was they lumped all their charities together, so that instead of dozens and dozens of separate people knocking on the door, what they did was they had under Red Feather, is everybody collected for Red Feather. The money went into a pool, and there was then given out to various charities who subscribed to it. It sounded like a good idea to me. But anyway, trick or treat. I mean, at 18, I must say that I wasn't totally keen on dressing up as anything. It was totally foreign to me. Now, of course, you can find it all throughout the United Kingdom as well as the United States. And good for them. Good for them. Jolly, jolly, jolly. Yes, the 31st of October is almost as important, not as important, but almost as important as bonfire. And we mustn't forget that bonfire is coming pretty soon. And not only that, but we will be broadcasting from 6 o'clock on next Saturday, or this Saturday, I suppose now, November the 5th, as the various bonfire societies parade through the streets with blazing torches and tar barrels and you name it, and very colourful costumes, and of course the odd firework tossed here and there. of that, but I was saying that I actually was trying to do too many things at once this morning. I got just a bit too ambitious, actually, and that was what we can expect on November the 5th, or a little taste of it. And I was busy trying hard to do something else, and of course, as usual, you can almost guarantee that things will actually go wrong. And indeed they did. And then when I'm trying to untangle it, as I take my eye off the ball, and suddenly you get a blank screen. I do say sorry for that. Dear, blank screen. Dead air, they call it. At one time, nobody ever, it was a cardinal sin to allow dead air. Then actually people began to realize that dead air wasn't so bad. After all, it gave people time to breathe. So we're not quite as bad as we might have been. So there we are. That is the start, anyway, of a week that for those people who are newcomers to Lewis will see builds slowly but surely, and builds to denouement on Saturday, the 5th of November. And the last time, if it's a decent night, is we got almost 100,000 people in here when it was on a Saturday, and it was decent weather. So it's decent weather, and it looks as if it might be not as warm as it is now, but a nice crisp November night. Then we are in for a lot of people in Lewis, and why not? Why not, indeed? So we'll. Now we'll take a broader view on what we should do, and we've got plenty to go on with this morning. But it is Halloween, and let's bring Claudine back again, because she is. very, very keen on Halloween herself, and does a wonderful little expose on the witches. So here's Claudine Harper again.
Hello, you've caught me. I've been unpacking my Halloween decorations. It's late October, therefore I need to get ready for Halloween, which of course falls on the 31st of October. Every year, without a doubt, even in these uncertain times. But Halloween always seems to get bad rap. You've either got it being said that it's unchristian,
Trying to steal my candy, will ya?
or it's an American holiday.
I'll bite your fingers off.
It always irritates me because not only is it inaccurate, but it shows a lack of awareness. Obviously you could say it's commercial.
No candy for you.
Most holidays are, just look at Christmas. But the fact that it is so mainstream in America has actually come from the fact that long time ago the Scots and the Irish immigrated to America, and actually Halloween has come from their traditions. Marking the end of the summer and the beginning of the darker time of the year, the old Irish had a name, Samhain, which meant summer's end. As they tended to believe a long time ago, with the darkening of the year coming, they believed that fairies and spirits would reappear at that time of year. Now, people a long time ago had to protect their livestock, and one of the things they felt they had to do was to help the undead or the spirits by offering food, leaving out food for them, just in case they did something to the livestock. But they weren't always feared. They were perhaps descendants of certain gods or special spirits, and so the food that they left out were actually gifts. And it was also believed that the souls of the dead, your relatives and your family, would revisit around that time of year, and you might at dinner time lay a place at the dinner table for them, just in case they popped by. Also, there is the tradition that people would go around guising or mummying, which is just dressing up. People would go from house to house and they would recite songs in exchange for food. And if you didn't give them some food, you may have some misfortune on your house. If you gave them food, then you probably would have good luck for the rest of the year until the next time. The name Halloween actually has come from All Hallows Eve, and you can still call it that today. It's just been shortened over time. So what was All Hallows Evening has eventually become E'en. And then this takes me to the Christian part of it. As far back as the 15th century, it's been linked to a Christian observance or festival. The Christians would bake cakes and have them given to children who would knock on the door on Halloween, and they would give them the cakes in exchange for the children saying prayers for the dead. There's so many traditions linked to Halloween that have just changed over time. I mean, you're talking about centuries. So the dressing up has become part of not being recognised by the dead. So if you dress up in an evil or crazy, gross costume, then perhaps they'll just overlook you. They won't do anything to you. But then there's also the idea that if you do dress up as them, they'll recognise a fellow person that looks like them and help them on their way back to heaven. And then there's the lanterns, the jack-o'-lanterns. You walk around the streets and it's supposed to give the dead the path back to heaven. The idea that you want to help your dead relatives get back to heaven, or that you're remembering the dead, but also to appreciate death in terms of being grateful for being alive. And then there's the best part, I find, which is using humour and ridicule to diminish the power of death, the idea of death, the fear of death. And even for kids, this is a great thing to do, to just look it straight in the face, look at something a bit scary, realise it's not going to do anything to you, and actually it's part of life. Probably because the Scots and the Irish are so patriotic that the festival, the holiday, thrived in America, and that's where it became quite mainstream. So when people say it's so American, yeah, it is, but it actually is something that anyone can celebrate and enjoy and have fun with. It doesn't matter your religion, your culture, or your age. To see your fellow neighbours going around dressed up in silly outfits for one day, to just be a little bit evil from your lovely innocent self that you are for the rest of the year, is actually really good fun. And you just let yourself go. But also, my memories of Halloween are being able to go around the neighbourhood and see my neighbours and see other people going around with their kids and enjoying themselves and having fun, laughing at each other's costumes, and the kids being so into it because they get to dress up into anything they want, and at the end of it they get sweets. I mean, what more could you ask for? The thing is, these days I think it's actually becoming more popular, and that's a great thing because we don't really know our neighbours very well. And in fact, Halloween gives us a chance to get out of the house on a cold, dark autumn night and to see the homes dressed up with the jack-o'-lanterns carved in really clever designs. All of this adds a sense of community, which we are always lacking these days. Then there's the great things about Halloween, like the toffee or chocolate apples. The apples that are so in abundance around because of the harvest. There's so many of them that they would just cover them in chocolate or toffee and give away to children. And to me, it's the best way to have an apple now. This curious, ghostly idea makes you feel like a kid again and just feeds into your curiosity that you don't know what's out there. As much as we love science and we love facts and knowledge, we still have to admit we really don't know what's in the unseen world. So let's not dismiss a culture or tradition just because it's American or it's commercial. Let's actually figure out what it is all about and see whether you want to celebrate it or not once you've found out. But to me, there's nothing really to be negative about Halloween unless you really don't want to be disturbed at night and you're living on your own. I can understand that. But if you're a family, if you're a young adult who just wants to have a bit of fun, then it's the perfect opportunity to not be yourself for one night and be something truly ghastly.
Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge. because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps. Oh, it's now the beautiful Sally, the owner of the hotel, has just come in, just as we come back, and she said, that beautiful, rich voice. And those of you who actually go to say, for God's sake, get rid of him. Oh, I just love this hotel. It's the most wonderful place to come to first thing in the morning, believe me. I've never had such a nice office to come to. Anyway, thank you, Sally. Okay, so there we are. That's Claudine with a little bit of what happens on Halloween night and a little background on what witches are all about. And so there's a bit of a stock check going on the booze. Anywhere where I'm left close to the boozers, they have to take a stock check afterwards to make sure that it's all okay. Now, I'm going to have a little bit of a rant because why it is that some of our leading businesses can get it so wrong, I have never understood at all. The BBC is taking an axe to local radio with plans to share shows. Now, first of all, there has been a great cull of local media right across the board. Local newspapers virtually don't exist anymore. Local, truly local. I'm talking about small towns and the sort of areas that BBC covers. Small town television is so rare that what you should do is take a recording of this, because in 10 years' time you'll be able to sell it for a few million. And all in all, we have backed off from micro and gone to macro. And macro is proving that it isn't able to stand up against such things as the streaming giants Netflix. So broadcasting as we know it, television and radio, which looks after society, is under the gun, is under threat. So the analysts have taken a look and they say that in 10 years' time, that it'll only be local that will be left, that local will flourish, and that the big broadcasters, as we know them at the moment, BBC, ITV, and so on and so forth, will disappear or be changed in appearance dramatically, or will have to get rid of a lot of the stuff that they do because Netflix and the streamers are going to take over. And where real news will be generated is at the local level. Now, I don't do anything special. I just look at the research that's done, and I understand how they've come to this conclusion. And I say, okay, let us persevere with local television, because we are slowly going to become more and more essential, more and more acceptable to viewers than the big things that we've got at the moment. What does the BBC do? It decides to axe the very sector of the industry that the experts say is going to flourish because of the different ways people now view. Wouldn't you know it? They don't read this research. Well, but why do we pay these people? Why do we pay them? I mean, it's so easy to find these things out and then develop a strategy which falls into line with what likely is going to happen in our society and our tastes and the trends of how we get our information and so on. No. Let's look at the bottom line. I mean, that's the idiotic thing. One day, the government will appoint as the Director General of the BBC somebody who never did anything other than at the local level. And then you'll start to see really decent stuff coming through. You really will. How sad that the BBC can axe local radio and then let everything else go ahead as if nothing is going to happen. Oh, God. I'll say it again. Oh, God. Dear, 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 dear. Anyway, the pumpkins are around me. The pumpkins are around me. And it isn't just a pumpkin for Cinderella. It's a pumpkin for Halloween, All Saints' Eve, as the official title, I think, is. Although it does go back to some name that I can't pronounce. And it is a Celtish festival. And some say it is the oldest festival of all and well over 2,000 years old. So there you are. Take that. All right. Then it is now, I think, time for us to look at other things. And it's because it's Halloween and we're talking about ghosties and ghoulies. Why don't we actually just take a few moments and take a look at the Sackville ghost?
Mickleham Priory is near Lewes. It was a former Augustine 13th century monastery. The main building has been preserved, but the church was pulled down by Henry VIII. The monks there had a reputation for naughtiness. Ghostly figures of monks are often seen walking the grounds. Stories of orgies and chasing the girls in the local village were legion. The priory became a private residence. One of its occupants was Sir Thomas Sackville, who lived there in the late 1500s. He was, by all accounts, a nasty bit of work. His ghost is said to bully the other spirits, as well as unsuspecting mortals. It must be true, I felt him kick me.
So what you've seen me is grinning inanely and my lips flapping and no sound coming out. What I was about to say, was that the ghost has a reputation of nipping bums, tweak, and I must say that the last time I was there, I distinctly felt my bum pinched, and I looked around, and yes, there were a number of very good-looking girls, but with the best one in the world, with my physiog nowadays, I doubt that they were actually pinching my bum. It must have been the ghost. But Mickleham Priory is only a few miles from Lewes, and I would recommend that you go and take a look if you've never been. It's very well preserved, and it does have a hedonistic reputation because the monks that were in the priory were a naughty lot, and the Pope had to send a couple of missions, if you like, there to try and say to these monks, hey, stop. They had a pub at the front gate, first thing, but lock up your daughters. The villagers were really feared for their daughters because the monks would have their naughty way with them. I'm sorry. I'm laughing because I'm going back in my mind to a little item that we had on Friday, and that is that the Pope has admitted that nuns and monks are great watchers of pornography. I mean, they must have known all about Mickle and Priory because they really were naughty monks, and they partied and they chased the local ladies, and they did all sorts of things that one would have thought that monks wouldn't do. With a pub at the front gates, you can't be a bit surprised, can you? The temptation was in their way, and I always think of the Karl Orff's Carmina Burana, which are a number of drinking songs associated with religion, with the church, because a number of these medieval songs came to light, and it would appear that particularly the novitiates, those who are learning to be a monk, would, like all students, tweak the tale of the tutor, and they would sing these bawdy songs which were aimed at Rome and the Pope. And no wonder they were hidden away, because I'm quite sure that the people who were into them in a big way were into them in a very secretive way as well. And if they were caught, boy, then they were for the high jump, because actually being a monk was a respectable profession. You know, you got 3 square meals a day plus pocket money, so not bad in those days. But the nuns and monks, what I talk about today, modern day nuns and monks watch porn on the internet. It's just appealed to my sense of humour. I just howl in laughter, and the fact that they've now admitted it. Because before, as all this was going on, I say, no, don't be so silly. We're terribly respectable. We wouldn't do things, I mean, like that. Oh, well, they bloody would, and they did, and they do. And that comes from the pontiff himself, who has admitted it. Dear. He's, right. I'm just looking through the inside of the papers to see if there's anything of great interest. Very big articles, but there's a 9-step guide to saving your relationship, and you don't have to pay a penny. Oh dear. Then there is yes, it's a big sports section, as one would expect. There's a lot of sports on the weekend, and I must say that we do seem to be doing very well. We're doing well in the ladies' rugby union. We're doing in the men's rugby league. In fact, we really demolished the opposition, or have been. So how it'll be as we get towards the final, I have no idea. But they've been doing very well. And then there's a full football focus, and the cricketers are off abroad playing, and Qatar is soon to host the Football World Cup. It's all happening. A lot of it is on deck, and yes, a lot of it is on deck. A lot of sports. What's this? Oh, if I pimped for Princess. What's this headline? Is the Crown made it look as if I pimped for Princess Margaret? It couldn't have been further from the truth. Who's this? Is Lady Glenconner, and with Princess Margaret, and her lover was Ronnie Llewellyn. She says she loved the cinema as long as she could smoke. They used to go to the Coronet Cinema in Notting Hill. Oh, I know that Coronet Cinema. It's a lovely little place. I worked in Notting Hill for about a year, and very interesting Notting Hill it was. And the Coronet I think it actually has been closed as a cinema. Or was it the one that actually designed the interior so people could lie down and sip of wine while they were lying watching the movie instead of sitting in the traditional seats? I know all sorts of things happen in Notting Hill, not just Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts. Oh yeah, oh dear, yes, absolutely. But hang on, we've got, I think, some. No, we've got some comments, but I can't see how to get them up this morning. But Rupert Lloyd Thomas was certainly on, and they're not coming through onto the usual page. So I'm afraid we just have to live with that until we can sort that out. But that's the least of our worries. And let's give you a time check. It's 9:29, as 9:30 on the 31st of October, which is Halloween, All Souls Night, Lost Souls Night, and so on. Witches most certainly have quite a tradition of how to handle the souls who may try to come back to make contact once a year, which they do on All Souls Day. Right, you are. We now can go on to other serious matters, and let's just while we're sorting out what's next, give you a little sting, as I say. There you go. There we are, and let's. We have to shut that down to get hold of Suzanne Michaud, who is in New York, and she joins us normally at about 10 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock in the morning there, and actually it's very early at the moment because they don't change their clocks at the same time as we do, which causes great confusion as to what time it is actually there. But we'll find out from her when we get hold of it. But let's see if we can actually get her on our system so that she can chat and tell us what's going on in America and what her family has been up to, which is a pretty good family. She's got an interesting family. So there we are. The invitation has been sent, and now what we will do is we will actually play you sort of an interesting little bit and piece, and it's well, it's a bit long for this stage of the morning, I think. But what we can do is we can take you on one of our travelogues to. It says Switzerland, but it's not. It's I think it's not Russia, Japan. And we're going to take you to Japan and give you opportunity to see what that country is like through model railways and real railways. Here we go. I'm sorry, but we seem to have lost the sound there, and we lost the internet feed as well. I'm doing my best to be engineer and present them. And what happened exactly, I do not know. I hope the post will be back broadcasting to you. And I'm going to just take a minute to I'm not absolutely sure what's going on there. So what we'll do is we will go to the we'll put on something pretty, and that will keep us going for a moment or two, I think, until such time as we can. Well, let's have a bit more box on that, shall we? Why not?
Could be anyone.
Right old mess this morning, aren't we? Dear. Never mind. We will get through. So if your picture has deteriorated, I'm sorry. It's the little gizmo that gives us a very decent picture that we've been getting recently. Has gone AWOL, another cousin. What it's done is it's decided to play up for some reason, and I'm not absolutely sure why. And so we're on our backup system, which at least will give you some sort of a picture, and we hope that it's a decent enough picture to keep you happy. Anyway, we will try in a little while to get us back to half decent stuff. All right, now I'm trying hard to keep up with a theme today, not having the best of luck, as you can see, but that's okay. What we'll do is we'll now go to rather a longer piece, and November in the past. Month of November is coming up. What happened across the ages in November? Well, here you are. We can show you.
Lockdown this week. It's been unexpected, but this week we've experienced an event which will go down in the history books. Yes, the American presidential election took place, an incredible and explosive clash of candidates, with the result leaving a divided America. But the main event for us in the UK was the reintroduction of lockdown, as the biggest health crisis in 100 years continues to wreak havoc throughout the civilized world. So what else happened over the centuries this week that had an impact on society? Back in 1841, a young New Yorker, John Bidwell, was fascinated by the move westward as the United States kept pushing back its frontiers. The 24-year-old Bidwell organized the Western Emigration Society and led the first wagon train of pioneers across the Rocky Mountains to settle in the largely unmapped territory of California. There were 69 adults, with only 5 women and a single couple with children. None of them, Bidwell included, had ever been to California. It was a tough journey, and they all suffered desperate hardship after having to abandon their wagons to cover the rough terrain. They arrived in California in November 1841. There were only 100 European Americans living in California
before the new settlers arrived. Back in the eastern United States in 1864, a presidential election was held. The Civil War was still raging as the incumbent president, Abraham Lincoln of the National Union Party, easily defeated the Democratic nominee, former General George B. McClellan. Lincoln's re-election ensured that he presided over the successful conclusion of the war. But tragically, Lincoln was assassinated less than 2 months into his second term, and he was succeeded by his vice president, Andrew Johnson. In November 1917, leftist revolutionaries in Russia, led by Bolshevik party leader Vladimir Lenin, launched a nearly bloodless coup against the country's provisional government. The Bolsheviks and their allies occupied government buildings and other strategic locations in Petrograd, renamed Leningrad and then St. Petersburg, and soon formed a new government with Lenin as its head. So Lenin became the dictator of the world's first communist state. But civil war broke out in Russia in late 1917 after the Bolshevik Revolution with the warring factions, including the Red and White armies. The Red Army fought for Lenin's Bolshevik government. The White Army represented a large group of loosely allied forces, including monarchists, capitalists, and supporters of democratic socialism. On July the 16th, 1918, the Romanovs were executed by the Bolsheviks. The Russian Civil War ended in 19... Archaeologist Howard Carter chiseled through a doorway in the Great Pyramids and entered to Tutankhamun's tomb, where he found the boy pharaoh's body. The burial chamber had remained sealed for more than 3,200 years. The tomb's vast hoard of artifacts and treasures were intended to accompany the king into the afterlife. Tutankhamun ruled Egypt as a pharaoh for 10 years, until his death at age 19 in around 1324 BC. Howard Carter's find revealed an incredible amount about royal life in ancient Egypt and quickly made King Tut the world's most famous pharaoh.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm faffing around here without any idea of whether you can hear me or not, or whether our present streamed the thing went wrong. It fell out there for a moment. I'm trying very hard to put it back. Let's see if I can.
He found the boy pharaoh's body. The burial chamber had remained sealed for more than 3,200 years. The tomb's vast hoard of artifacts and treasures were intended to accompany the king into the afterlife. Tutankhamun ruled Egypt as a pharaoh for 10 years until his death at age 19 in around 1324 BC. Howard Carter's find revealed an incredible amount about royal life in ancient Egypt and quickly made King Tut the world's most famous pharaoh. The Hawker Hurricane fighter plane made its first flight in 1935. It became famous in World War II and accounted for over 60% of the air victories in the Battle of Britain. The plane initially failed to receive government funding for the building of a prototype, but Hawker Aircraft were so convinced of its success they proceeded to build it as a private venture. The first prototype flew this week in November 1935. The Hurricane tag was given to the plane by King Edward VIII during a visit to Hawker in July 1936. A total of 1,715 Hurricanes flew with fighter command during the Battle of Britain. It's estimated that Hurricane pilots were credited with 4/5 of all enemy aircraft destroyed in the period July to October 1940. In 1968, Republican candidate Richard Nixon, a congressman who had served as vice president under Dwight D. Eisenhower, was elected president of the United States. Nixon had stood for president in 1960, but lost to charismatic Massachusetts Senator John F. Kennedy. In 1974, he resigned rather than be impeached for covering up illegal activities of Republican Party members and his staff in the Watergate affair. The case was made famous by two reporters who used information from an informant called Deep Throat, who was never properly identified. Nixon died on April the 22nd, 1994, at age 81 in New York City. This week in 1972 saw legendary steeplechaser Red Rum win his first race. The horse was seen as hard to control and was sold on several times. He ran in a 5-furlong cellar at Aintree, in which he crossed the line in a dead heat victory. But Red Rum turned out to be a champion thoroughbred steeplechaser. He won an unmatched historic treble when he won the Grand National in 1973, 1974 and 1977, coming second in 1975 and 1976. The Grand National has been described as the ultimate test of a horse's courage. He was also renowned for his jumping ability. He never fell in 100 races. The 1973 Red Rum victory came from being 30 lengths behind, and this victory is often considered one of the greatest Grand Nationals of all time. Red Rum's historic third triumph in the Grand National was voted the 24th greatest sporting event ever. In 1974, the world was captivated by the brutal murder of a 29-year-old nanny named Sandra Rivet in London, and the rapid disappearance of the main suspect, an aristocrat named Richard John Bingham. or Lord Lucan. Lucan was a dashing British aristocrat and army officer, known for his prowess at backgammon and bridge, and his fondness for vodka martinis, powerboats, and Aston Martin cars. The murder took place in the dark basement of a townhouse, after which Lucan disappeared forever, meaning no one can say for sure what happened. He was declared officially dead in 2017. After murdering his children's nanny, Lucan attacked his wife, then fled south. He stayed with friends in the East Sussex town of Uckfield, where it is claimed the mafia, to whom he owed money, executed him. He was thought to have escaped by ferry after his bloodstained car was found in New Haven, or that he jumped overboard from a ferry with rocks in his pocket. No one will ever know. This week in 2004, 7 people were killed and 61 injured when a high-speed train hit a car on an isolated level crossing in a Berkshire village and was derailed. The 5:35 p.m. London to Plymouth service smashed into the vehicle on the unmanned crossing at 100 miles per hour, 30 minutes after leaving London's Paddington Station. There were around 300 people on board the train at the time. 2008, and back to elections again. Barack Obama became the 44th President of the United States, the first black person to do so. His father was from Kenya and his mother from Kansas. President Obama was born in Hawaii in 1961. He was sworn in on January the 20th, 2009, and served 2 terms in the White House. So elections dominated the headlines several times in this week in the past, as well as gruesome murders and winning racehorses. More events in history next week. This is Mirador Television with Once Upon a Time in This Week.
Apologies for some technical problems in that story. We need to get the sound back, and I think that we've got things going now. And I'm happy to say that at least I can hear myself, which is something. Let's just run back over the news headlines. This one on the front pages. A bit of a mixed bunch. Some of it is to do with the government, and others to do with the immigrants and the fact that an immigrant centre was set on fire on over the weekend in Dover. There was only 2 people hurt, but nonetheless, the fact that that sort of thing is being targeted once again shows the unease, I think, with which people are viewing the arrival of thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people who don't want to get into this country for a variety of reasons, mostly from Middle East countries and from Africa. And that we can only absorb so many. And that once we've absorbed them, we've absorbed them. And of course, there are those that say, immediately cry discrimination if anything else is done. So the government really is between a rock and a hard place on this one. The weather building up over the next week to bonfire it looks as if it's going to be a half decent weather picture for next Saturday. Today is quite warm again. It's about 17, 18 degrees. And well, you could get a few showers, but the breeze, the wind is quite moderate. Well, I was worried about that moderate breeze because whenever they say it's moderate, it lifts my hat off. I go chasing down the road after it. But the big night, November the 5th, it looks like it's going to be not too bad, but a bit chillier than it is today. And then that's okay too, because we're getting into October is coming out of summer into autumn. November, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, and of course, whether they are grown here or whether they're brought in from abroad, is pumpkins are very much the fashion, and very colourful they are, as you can see from those that are behind me. So there we are with where we are. We should now start to take a look at what's up and what's on the view as we enter into the last hour of our broadcast. Let's just take a break. Well, that's a little potpourri of the things that go on around us in this lovely little town of Lewes, East Sussex. Broadcasting as we are, this is Keith Hayes from the White Hart Hotel, set right in the middle of the town. And a lovely location it is, and a lovely old hotel it is, and a lovely town it is as well. We can't complain, or we shouldn't complain. This is where the heart is. Am I yawning untoward? Yes, I am really, but you just have to forgive me. It is a manifestation of Parkinson's disease, which I am a sufferer, along with other worthy people such as Michael J. Fox and the Big Ian and Neil Diamond, quite a few celebrities who have Parkinson's, and we do our best to keep it under control, to use our lives usefully, and to keep things really cracking. So. Yes, there we are. I just saw the owner of the hotel, Cliff Aries, walk past. We had a little chat off camera this morning to his wife, Sally, and what a terrific team they are. And this is where I think that's the sound of the phone coming through earlier. It's those people who know me know very well not to call while I'm on the air, but unfortunately, not everybody knows me that well, and so we're never quite sure who is calling. So, yes, the mouth. And I haven't really had a damn good rant because, like most people, I think that the Westminster crisis has gone off the boil for a day or two. Although I was talking to some people this morning about the subsidy for heating, and apparently, if you don't pay by direct debit, is you have to apply for it. I mean, what a great way to get around it. I don't know why civil servants can't simplify things. When we're training people in communications, we tell them that they should follow the KISS policy. Keep it simple, stupid. And we should be able to keep things simple. Do you think that the government can? No, not in the least. If they can complicate it, they will. Heating stuff, if you're not getting the money, it might be a good idea to find out whether you're supposed to apply for it. I had no idea that I was supposed to. But it's one of those nonsensical things, isn't it? And only sent to try us and to put yet another layer of bureaucracy onto our shoulders instead of theirs. A good thing if you can get it. Making sure that somebody else does the work for you, and you actually sit with your feet up. All right. We haven't got Suzanne yet. Hopefully she will come through in due course, and we will. We'll go to. I'll tell you what I think, because it is Halloween today. Let's join Claudine again and hear what she has to say, because it's pretty good advice, I think.
Hello, you've caught me. I've been unpacking my Halloween decorations. It's late October, therefore I need to get ready for Halloween, which of course falls on the 31st of October. Every year, without a doubt, even in these uncertain times. But Halloween always seems to get bad rap. You've either got it being said that it's unchristian,
Trying to steal my candy, will ya?
or it's an American holiday.
I'll bite your fingers off.
It always irritates me because not only is it inaccurate, but it shows a lack of awareness. Obviously you could say it's commercial.
No candy for you.
Most holidays are. Just look at Christmas. But the fact that it is so mainstream in America has actually come from the fact that long time ago the Scots and the Irish immigrated to America, and actually Halloween has come from their traditions. of the summer and the beginning of the darker time of the year. The old Irish had a name, Samhain, which meant summer's end. As they tended to believe a long, long time ago, with the darkening of the year coming, they believed that fairies and spirits would reappear at that time of year. Now, people a long time ago had to protect their livestock, and one of the things they felt they had to do was to help the undead or the spirits by offering food, leaving out food for them, just in case they did something to the livestock. But they weren't always feared. They were perhaps descendants of certain gods or special spirits, and so the food that they left out were actually gifts. And it was also believed that the souls of the dead, your relatives and your family, would revisit around that time of year, and you might at dinner time lay a place at the dinner table for them just in case they popped by. Also, there is the tradition that people would go around guising or mummying, which is just dressing up. People would go from house to house and they would recite songs in exchange for food. And if you didn't give them some food, you may have some misfortune on your house. If you gave them food, then you probably would have good luck for the rest of the year until the next time. The name Halloween actually has come from All Hallows Eve, and you can still call it that today. It's just been shortened over time. So what was All Hallows Evening has eventually become Een. And then this takes me to the Christian part of it. As far back as the 15th century, it's been linked to a Christian observance or festival. The Christians would bake cakes and have them given to children who would knock on the door on Halloween, and they would give them the cakes in exchange for the children saying prayers for the dead. There's so many traditions linked to Halloween that have just changed over time. I mean, you're talking about centuries. So the dressing up has become part of not being recognised by the dead. So if you dress up in an evil or crazy, gross costume, then perhaps they'll just overlook you. They won't do anything to you. But then there's also the idea that if you do dress up as them, they'll recognise a fellow person that looks like them and help them on their way back to heaven. And then there's the lanterns, the jack-o'-lanterns. You walk around the streets and it's supposed to give the dead the path back to heaven. The idea that you want to help your dead relatives get back to heaven, or that you're remembering the dead, but also to appreciate death in terms of being grateful for being alive. And then there's the best part, I find, which is using humour and ridicule to diminish the power of death, the idea of death, the fear of death. And even for kids, this is a great thing to do, to just look it straight in the face, look at something a bit scary, realise it's not going to do anything to you, and actually it's part of life. Probably because the Scots and the Irish are so patriotic that the festival, the holiday, thrived in America, and that's where it became quite mainstream. So when people say it's so American, yeah, it is, but it actually is something that anyone can celebrate and enjoy and have fun with. It doesn't matter your religion, your culture, or your age. To see your fellow neighbours going around dressed up in silly outfits for one day, to just be a little bit evil from your lovely innocent self that you are for the rest of the year, is actually really good fun. And you just let yourself go. But also, my memories of Halloween are being able to go around the neighbourhood and see my neighbours and see other people going around with their kids and enjoying themselves and having fun, laughing at each other's costumes, and the kids being so into it
Good
because
morning.
they get to dress up into anything
No,
they want,
indeed.
and at the end of it they get sweets. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Yes,
The
indeed.
thing
I'll be
is,
over.
these days, I think it's actually becoming more popular. And that's a great thing because we don't really know our neighbours very well. And in fact, Halloween gives us a chance to get out of the house on a cold, dark autumn night and to see the homes dressed up with the jack-o'-lanterns carved in really clever designs. All of this adds a sense of a community, which we are always lacking these days. Then there's the great things about Halloween, like the toffee or chocolate apples. The apples that are so in abundance around because of the harvest. There's so many of them that they would just cover them in chocolate or toffee and give away to children. And to me, it's the best way to have an apple now. This curious, ghostly idea makes you feel like a kid again and just feeds into your curiosity that you don't know what's out there. As much as we love science and we love facts and knowledge, we still have to admit we really don't know what's in the unseen world. So let's not dismiss a culture or tradition just because it's American or it's commercial. Let's actually figure out what it is all about and see whether you want to celebrate it or not once you've found out. But to me, there's nothing really to be negative about Halloween unless you really don't want to be disturbed at night and you're living on your own. I can understand that. But if you're a family, if you're a young adult who just wants to have a bit of fun, then it's the perfect opportunity to not be yourself for one night and be something truly ghastly.
Oh, thank you. That will keep me going.
We try feeding you because we love you, you know? Yeah, we
Right. One of my favourite people in the hotel this morning is just and giving me a biscuit to keep me going. She says they've got to feed me just to keep me on the right side of starvation and famine. I'm afraid that's. Yeah, that's keeping me out of trouble as far as hunger is concerned. Now, an inside page story. Which is dear to my heart. In fact, I get quite upset about it. We will repeal the ruinous law that threatens press freedom, says a minister. The new Culture Secretary has pledged to repeal a controversial law that could make newspapers pay legal costs for both sides in any libel and privacy cases, regardless of who wins. Michelle Donovan said Section 40 of the Crime and Courts Act 213, which has sat on the statute books for years but had never been brought into effect, threatened media freedom and risked financial ruin for publishers. Now, you recall we had a lot of trouble over mobile phones, a lot of scandal about it, and guidelines were drawn up to stop legislation, to have the newspaper editors and the publishers give a joint and voluntary recognition to press regulation. But nobody ever signed a piece of paper about it. So the government started to get a little feisty. You're not going to do it as you promised. We'll do it. So this thing came in without really meaning what it was doing, but that's beside the point. If it's on the statute books, it's on the statute books. And it was an immediate threat to press freedom. So at least the government is beginning to do something about that now. And that it's quite important, because media freedom is one of those things that governments love to get around. Now, ours is better than most, or has been up until now. But the new EU states have been atrocious. Slovenia, Poland, Hungary have all backtracked on pledges of press freedom that they gave when they were about to become members of the European Union. And that is not good enough. There are various organizations that monitor press freedom throughout the world. And those countries, and a number more, have reneged on their promise to make sure that press freedoms were in place during the during their transition into members of the European Union, and they haven't. Romania was one of the worst. I was in Romania in the month that it, I think it was 2010, 2008, 2009, that it became a member of the European Union. And up until that time, it had actually been throwing journalists into prison. Now, it did stop that, as far as I'm aware, but it still had a great measure of control over the Romanian media, to the point where, for instance, one television station showed a minister taking money in a brown paper bag for altering some legislation. What was the reaction of the government? Oh, dear, dear, you naughty boy. You shouldn't have done that. On the contrary, what they did was they altered the legislation. Altered it. So it said that transactions of this sort could not be shown on television. It's just crazy, isn't it? It is absolutely crazy that we can actually put up with these sort of things. And that press freedom, well, so I've got a fly there. Press freedom can be attacked the way that it is. And it is not. It's not at all jolly good fun. Now, probably there is a lot that's controversial. You see it in this town. It's all the fault of the press, or the press whipped up this storm. Well, we are not blameless. I'm the first to admit that we are not blameless. But believe me, it is better to have legislation that allows freedom of the media within some light touch legislation than it is to clamp down on media altogether. Because once the average citizen doesn't know, totally doesn't know, and is forbidden by law to know what's going on in the corridors of power, we are in trouble. We are all in trouble. And that is the way that the world has been going partly because now we have the abuse of social media. We have the abuse of easy news access. I won't mention which paper, but just recently, the brother of a friend of mine retired after a significant career, in fact, a distinguished career in newspapers. And he said that trying to stop young journalists, particularly in the overnight shifts, when it's sometimes difficult to monitor them the way it is during the daytime, from just simply trawling the web, grabbing something and using it. And nobody was either pointing out to them or implementing the old unwritten rule that I came up under, and many of the other journalists of the time came up under, and that is that you checked the veracity of something that you hadn't initiated yourself 3 times or from 3 separate sources to make sure that you got it right. And it's not done anymore. It is not done anymore. And it's that is a sad reflection on us, on members of the media. I, in this town, had a run-in about 5 years ago. Yes, about 5 years ago now. And I was not without blame. A situation which was reported. It was reported so badly by the local paper that it was used, the story was used as an example of how not to do things, particularly in business reporting. I mean, nobody cared. We'd filled the space available, and that is a very poor practice on behalf of the media. But the moment you actually start to clamp down on it and decide to say that it can't do this and it can't do that, you are in dreadful trouble unless you are angling for having some sort of an authoritarian regime replace the present constitutional monarchy system which we have, and which actually does guarantee certain rights and certain freedoms, and an open media. And we don't want to see that disappear. Believe me, for all the dissatisfaction that you may feel from time to time, you do not want, it's all the fault of the press, to get to the point where we find legislation in place that curbs the freedom of the press. So I'm glad that this piece of legislation is being revoked. By the same token, there are lots of things on both sides which could, if a proper dialogue is established, it could very much give us the free press that we want, without the excesses that a free press can undertake if it is not controlled. Well, that's the way it is. And I'm glad that I've noted this story, because I must say it came down over the pike without me actually seeing it straight away. Now I have. I'm interested in it. I'm interested that some people are now beginning to take up the cudgel and to try and maintain those freedoms of the press, which other countries do enjoy. The Americans, for instance, have freedom of the press enshrined in their constitution. Since we don't have a constitution or a written constitution as such, it's difficult to enshrine anything. But one of the interesting things is, having worked in both areas, the in the Americas and here is, in America, it is a constitutional duty of a public organization to provide press facilities. So, for instance, you find that the police station has got a press room. The law courts have got a press room. City Hall has got a press room. We tend not to do that here. I shocked when I came back from Canada. I shocked the local establishment because I sent a reporter down once a day to find out what the hell was going on with City Hall, what sort of news there was. And they'd never had that before. And they scurried for cover. But they accepted that I wasn't going to give up. And that I was going to send people down to ask questions. So they might as well give us a facility. Anyway, I left Birmingham early enough in my career so that they didn't get too unhappy about the whole situation, because the boil, the irritant, moved on to other things. Actually, to Northern Ireland. That was another situation, but there we won't go into it. Just suffice it enough to say that freedom of the press, freedom of the media, is of vital importance, and it's something that I personally fight tooth and claw to make sure that we don't lose. We don't lose the freedoms which the media has to carry on its duties here, because we are the watchdog. We are the group that keeps an eye open to make sure. Now, when I say make sure there is no malfeasance, is we don't have the resources anymore to really hammer at the door. And the local council is not that forthcoming. There's not a hell of a lot that we can do, except we can actually come across various things. Now, I have opted today, a bit partly technical, but partly because it's very important. I have a very nice interview with Stephen Catlin, the former mayor, who makes a point about sense of duty and how councils should operate. And that will be played as, what should we say, as a VIP story tomorrow when we come back. Just let me remind everybody who they're watching. This is Mirador Television, Mirador TV. We emanate from Lewis, and that's the county town of East Sussex, all in the United Kingdom. We try hard to be as innovative as we possibly can. We try hard to keep an eye on what's going on that shouldn't be going on in the various levels of government. And we try hard to reflect the nature of the local society. At the moment, you might think it's very stingy because we obviously struggle with things which we would love to get some money out of the local community to implement and put straight. Well, it's up to you as to whether you think that we should ask for funds from the community or not. But what you can tell is that we are not filthy rich. And that if we were, I'm not so sure that we would stay around. is to make sure that this television goes on the air. Who knows? All right, let's go down to the park, shall we? Let's go down to the park today. You're bound to have a nice surprise. Lovely park. And for a small plot of land, well, a bit more than a plot, very rich in history, because that park was the gardens of Southover Manor, a 16th century mansion built by one William Newton, and it was built from the stones that were lying derelict after Henry VIII and Thomas Cromwell had pulled down the priory. And a magnificent manor it is. And in its day, it was said in the record books to be by far the grandest manor in Lewis. And Newton was an avid Quaker. Well, no, sorry, he wasn't a Quaker. He was a Protestant. He was a Protestant of the nth degree. The Protestants of Oliver Cromwell, the Protestants that will not have Christmas, that banned mince pies, that made sure that people wore black, that threw people into the pokey for working on a Sunday. And incidentally, that included cricket. It's because when cricket got its first start, which was only in the 1600s, the people started to play it on a Sunday instead of going to church. And by golly, the establishment looked upon that very unkindly, and off they went, nicked for playing cricket on a Sunday. But back to Grange Park and the history of it, because it most certainly has a very rich history. The old grammar school was originally in its grounds. It was prone to flooding. The Prince Regent often took his lady, let's put it that way, to stay on weekends with him in that house. It, as I said, was the aim of the Protestants, of the Royalists, to get a toehold in East Sussex, which they needed to command the local districts for the king at the time of the English Civil War. And was the reason for the Battle of Haywards Heath. Yes, the Battle of Haywards Heath. Most people don't realise there was a Battle of Haywards Heath, but it was quite substantial. The Royalists lost 200 people in that fight, in that battle, carried from the field of war, of battle. And it was that battle and the intention of the Royalists to take Lewis and to get William Newton that caused the Republican army to be raised by the Lord of the Manor of Glyndebourne at the time. And it was his troops, or the army that he'd gathered together, that defeated the Royalists, and history was changed. Because we may well have been a Royalist town very quickly had they won that battle of such major consequence. There's little things initiate or something like that. Doesn't sound very wise, does it? But nonetheless, now I got a feeling. I've got a feeling that Suzanne may not join us this morning, and the reason being is that we put back our clocks on Sunday night, Saturday night, Sunday morning. And the Americans don't do it for another couple of weeks. So that actually causes confusion as to what time is it in the United Kingdom or what time is in America when you're having dealings backwards and forwards. And I think that she may well think that she doesn't have to come on the air until an hour later than she should. So we will forgive her this week, if that is the case. Although we've still got we have only got 10 minutes to go, and you put up with me through our little technical queasy bits earlier today, and I hope that the picture that you're getting isn't too bad. But I think what we might do is just replay one of our little things. We've replayed the witches, and for that matter, we've replayed the fireworks. But I tell you what, let us actually put on the screen the Japanese trains. Oh, you might say Japanese trains. These are model trains, some real trains, and a very close look at the countryside in Japan as seen from these trains. Because if there's very little we know individually about sometimes our destinations, is anything. No idea what it looks like, what it behaves like, and so on. So let's just take another quick, swift journey through the Japanese countryside. Here we go, he said. Well, there we are. That's what it's like in Japan. They're also very good model makers, very representative of what the trains are like, but also very representative of what the scenery is like, as you can see from the real film, compared to what they've been doing in the modeling world. It is now 10:56, 4 minutes before we say goodbye. Let me just remind you about this week. Tomorrow, Stephen Catlin is the headline news with a little interview about the upcoming Remembrance Sunday. We will have more programs about Bonfire. We'll start our coverage of Bonfire the way that we did of Halloween today. We have some comment from Liza Page. We have a couple of interesting archive programs. Some from Bonfire, and others from things that are going on this time last year and the year before, and so on and so forth. On Wednesday, Stuart Darby has a very, very important or good, interesting guest, I should say, and that's worth tuning in for. He'll also, which is also very topical, be doing his Energy Matters and bringing you up to date on what the situation is in the energy market. Are you or aren't you going to get money? Are you or aren't you going to be able to pay these bills? Well, it's an on and off situation, I'm afraid. But we bring you as much as we can in background information that we possibly can. And then heading into the weekend, we shall broadcast on Saturday from 6 p.m. in the evening until the last rocket is fired, around about, well, not the last rocket, but the main bonfires have been lit and the firework displays are over, somewhere around 10 o'clock. Please join us for that. You've got a good team of reporters here, comment from across the pond, comment from Hastings, and comment from one or two other places that find themselves startled by the celebrations that take place in Lewis. So you can watch the parades, you can hear some comment, you can hear some news about what's going on with Bonfire each year, and all in all, not a bad place to be. There are others that you can tune into. Rocket Radio, they've got a streaming of their coverage of it. I think Radio Lewis is doing something, and we most certainly are, and we do invite you to join us. A good team, and from the White Hart Hotel, which is the center of just about anything, really. It's 11 o'clock. I'll say toodle pip until tomorrow, and I hope that you'll join me and bumble through another couple of hours, but bumbling of some interest and significance. Toodle pip